you see around here with his Zonda badge on it. We'll tell you more detail about it. Without that, we're now going to jump into the CEO strategies. And to lead the conversation is a person that I've worked with for about 10 years. And I have to tell you that I can compare her to anyone that I've ever worked with. No one holds a candle to her in terms of energy and industry knowledge. And Kimberly, that's right, I'm talking about our managing principal who oversees our multifamily side of our practice, Kimberly Byron. Now, Kimberly is Texas-based, but with our multifamily team that Kimberly leads, we work nationwide. And she's involved in high-rise, she's involved in three-story walk-ups. She knows the industry really, really well. She's also a very good athlete. Now, she's not a football player, but she's played other sports, but she is a football fan. And I want to acknowledge to the group and Kimberly, to you, that I'm so sorry about Texas A&M and the fact that they didn't make it into the playoff this year. But with that, you bring your energy, bring your knowledge, and let's have a conversation with our CEOs. Gentlemen, welcome. Thank you, Kimberly. Round of applause, guys. Warm it up.
Thank you, Tim. Glad to be here. This is the second year. If you have not been before, this is an amazing lineup. Looking forward to a great discussion. On the stage with me, I have Henry Ball, who's with Swire Properties. He is a UK-based, headquartered organization with big holdings in Hong Kong and Beijing. And then you are working some of their most important properties in the United States, and we're going to talk about that. And then we have Jonathan Landau, who's here from New York, but also kind of back and forth from Miami. Glad to have him. He has a really interesting boutique project we're going to hear more about with a yacht club, and he also is very active in New York. So I want to just quickly turn it over to Henry. Tell us a little bit about what you're working on and share some of, and Jed is going to share some of the images I think that you brought.
Thank you very much, Kimberly. Great to be here. So what are we working on? Swire has been in Miami for years. Quite a long history in Miami. When I say Miami, it's really just Brickell, really sort of quite laser focused with our footprint in Miami. And in 1979, we bought the island of Brickell. Ever since the early 80s, it's just developing out what is now a 40-year master plan. And we're now coming to the end, the last piece of developable land, the sort of the crescendo, the jewel in the crown of the portfolio, which is going to be the redevelopment of the Mandarin Oriental Hotel that sits there today, that many of you will know. And we'll be demolishing that and then combining the site with a vacant site behind it and creating a two-tower scheme with a smaller hotel, smaller boutique hotel, and then a tower of branded residences under the Mandarin Oriental brand. And then in addition to that, we also own and operate Brickell City Centre, which is a retail-led mixed-use scheme just on the Brickell mainland, which has hotel, office, condo, and retail.
Very good. And Jonathan, share with us what's going on.
Sure. So similar to Henry, we started in the 1970s, but that's when I was born, 1975. I guess I'm the CEO of really a family business that my daughter, my son-in-law, and a few very close friends really work together on a daily basis. We're a development company that's focused here in Miami on, I would call it more boutique projects, as well as in New York City. And there we have, I would say, more of a scaled, large, high-rise project. Our projects here in Miami really are intended to, and I guess sort of following up on the last presenter, interestingly, I'm the first one that doesn't have an accent. So talk about, Miami being a melting pot. But we're looking to enter into very differentiated markets that have a documented demand for luxury product with a deficiency in supply. So really supply and demand at its very basic. Everybody who builds in a project in Miami is usually looking for scale, is usually looking to develop something that's tried and true, and delivers a commodity product. 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom, something that the data supports, something that they can sort of, recreate and execute on. We look to a slightly different angle. We're looking for a location where there is a demand for high-end differentiated luxury, but there is limited supply of that for whatever reason. Mostly it's because when you develop a project, to do something that has a big price point and have multiple of those units to be able to sell through is considered to be more risky than just bringing a bunch of smaller units to the market that are selling at a known velocity or anticipated velocity. So our projects are more boutique here in Miami. Right now, obviously, there's a ton of new development here, and there's a lot of people that have appetite for a much larger kind of development, but we're very happy with that. And we're also going to be bringing a new office building to the market, which we're closing on this week, God willing, and it's going to have about 75,000 feet of Class A plus office space right across from the Bal Harbor Shops, as well as a 20,000 square foot restaurant that's coming from New York. So again, we're trying to sort of fit that niche of very much in demand but undersupplied product.
I think that's really interesting. So Ali presented a lot of facts earlier today. You know, we talked about the dollar. She and I had several discussions about that. What key economic indicators are you watching, Henry, in your business that help you? You know, you've got this generational real estate that you're working on, but you know, what are the key indicators that you're watching to help you keep going?
Well, the impression I got after Ali finished speaking is that we're not watching enough. I think I'm just going to sign up to Ali's
You need
newsletter.
an economist, yes.
That was fantastic, particularly
Yes.
the point about wealth creation. Look, I mean, we of course, you know, monitor the typical indicators, interest rates, the broader volume of sales and prices in the market, but we're a 200-year-old company, right? We take a very, very long-term focus. So we're looking sort of 30, 40, 50 years ahead. So we don't try and time the market cycle. We are more focused on creating places that will endure for a lifetime, and then really working with the local community to ensure that we sort of grow those projects, and then the boundary between our property and the local community are very permeable. So what we at the moment, because we're launching, have launched sales for the residences at Mandarin from Miami. I mean, there's always been a lot of interest from Latin American buyers, particularly in Brickell Key. So we watch closely what's happening in those countries, particularly as policy shift. But actually, what's been really encouraging so far, since we started signing contracts in the summer, is the high representation of domestic buyers.
Yes.
Have exceeded our expectations.
And are
About
those baby
70%.
boomers, or are you seeing the millennials come into the market?
I think they're too much like personal sort of demographic data, but in general they've been older, so between 50 and 60. So
Taking that personally.
Say boomer. And yeah, I think they are looking for secondary, tertiary homes. Perhaps they're empty nesters. They've had a single family home in Coral Gables, Coconut Grove, and they're now looking for something more convenient that has the whole sort of luxury experience, but is close to the action.
Jonathan, you already talked about supply and demand. As you're designing your floor plans, you are trying to get outside of that commoditized box. You know, what are some of the things that you look for? Is it dining? Is it appliances? What are the main
And I
factors?
think that we look for true luxury, and in residential that means that you should have more than one living space. A great room that has your dining room, living room, and kitchen all bundled together, even if it's a beautiful space overlooking the water, is usually not enough for a luxury residence. You want to have a family room, a room where if you're entertaining people or your kids are with their friends and you have your friends and you just don't want to be around the kids for a moment in your life, then you have another place to go. If you're a professional or you have a business and you don't want to go into the office, you want to have a home office. If you want to entertain in your home for business purposes, but you don't want to bring them into your private living space, we look at, can you create a second entrance off of an elevator that doesn't actually directly enter into your main living space, but could be, an entrance where people who are visiting you and, you're interested more in having a business transaction or interaction with them, they can still enter your residence, but not into your living space. Those are elements that I think are very important. I think a lot of developers look to build huge closets and, some factors that we think are not as relevant in secondary and in other bedrooms. Amenities are super important.
Yes.
One of the benefits of living in a high-rise or a multiple unit development is that your home can really be exclusively for your living spaces. And the amenities, especially in a building that has a limited number of units, 10, 20 units, are almost private spaces that are available to multiple people to use. Hopefully you get along with the people in your building, but for the most part, you can have a rooftop pool that you have, maybe you see somebody else in there once a week.
Yes.
Because the timing that people like to go swimming aren't always aligned with each other. A gym, a fitness center that's more geared towards private, trainer versus having more of a buff kind of gym style. We don't go that route. Even in our project here in Miami, where we're on Indian Creek, and so many developments are on the ocean. The beautiful thing about a development on the ocean is the views are phenomenal. You have the ocean views, they calm you down, they get you energized, whatever they might do. The one thing you can't do is dock a boat on the ocean here in Miami. And we have the opportunity to really have boat owners because we're right near the outlet, number one, and number two, we're on the Indian Creek River. We had the opportunity to have a bunch of boat slips, and we thought to ourselves when we were designing this building, somebody who has a luxurious home, they still have to take care of their boat unless they have a boat concierge. And we partnered up with a company that provides boat concierge services for people that have medium to large size boats, and they would provide maintenance. They'd stock them, they'd fuel them, they'd clean them, and all of those things were done basically off of the marina where these boats are usually stored. And we said to ourselves, okay, well, what if we could provide all of these services? Obviously, it's not part of the common charges, but these are like a buffet menu that you can say, okay, I have a boat here, it'll be here 4 months out of the year. I don't want it to be a headache. I want it to just be this beautiful, luxurious element of my life. Somebody else will handle it. They can sign up with the boat concierge, and in exchange for that, we're basically giving the boat concierge company this captive market to be able to sell their services. And we said, okay, give us a reasonable price to have somebody on site 40 to 60 hours a week. So we have a dockmaster. It doesn't really increase common area charges that much because we're using that dockmaster to provide beverages and towel services outside at the marina area. But it's another person that cares for you, that's there to provide services to you, and also now they can monetize that. So the partnership really works well for us, for the residents, and for the...
And it creates a lot of energy too. Like you walk the water and you just see someone out there with their hose, and it just feels like things are happening.
Or even when you're waiting there to give you a glass of champagne,
Yeah.
or maybe, that we have a sunken jacuzzi outside to have a towel and a robe for you. Just little touches that make a difference.
Yeah, that's really awesome. So there are a lot of people in the room that are service providers, that are architects, that are designers. How do you partner? How do you select your partners? I mean, they all want to know this information. What are you looking for, Henry, whenever you're looking for partners in a project?
So with our current project for the residences at Manor Rental, I mean, we really, the vision was really to create a global destination, right? So we're sort of riding on Miami's rise, Miami's high profile nature at the moment. And first and foremost, you want to find partners, consultants who share that view, share the aspiration, buy into the vision, and also are like-minded in that they share your company values as well. And in that regard, I mean, we wanted to find people who were obsessed with quality, so doing things right, not cutting corners, not accepting just good enough, but that also could get it done in Miami, right? So you could build something that was affordable, that was constructible. So it's a fine balance, but I think we've achieved that. And what was also important was assembling a team that, for many of them, this is their first new development commission in the US. So Our landscaping is done by a Thai firm called Schmal out of Bangkok, and they really bring this sort of lush green jungle environment, which is a key feature of the podium that connects the two towers. We have over 100,000 square feet of amenities, so that's a real key feature of the project. And then also Tristan Auer, who is a Parisian designer who's doing the interiors. Again, for him, this was a first new development project in the US. And then KPF is the lead architect, and everyone knows KPF, but it's that kind of international best practice quality that we want to bring.
Partnerships, Jonathan. How do you?
Yeah, so I mean, I think really what you just touched on is really critical. It really takes a village. When you start a new development, you have your creative agency, which is probably one of the most important partners to start off with. Somebody who sees the way you're going to market your project, listens to what you want to achieve, gives you ideas, maybe outlandish ideas, but if you don't have outlandish ideas on the table, you're going to basically settle somewhere where in between a staff architect and somebody who thinks he's going to be the next best architect, star-architect, is going to put you. So having a great creative guy is important in the beginning. Having your sales team there and your leasing or rental team there in the beginning is also super important, because as you start throwing off these ideas, what the building is going to be, every building has its own personality. You need to make sure that it's all sort of being triangulated with who is your prototype purchaser, what do they want, what's going to make a difference to them, what's going to be a differentiator. So I would say creative, sales team, two very important components that you want to start your project with. And obviously then you have your architect and all of your consultants and your interior designer. And to me, and sometimes you don't necessarily go about this in an orthodox way, but the interior designer is the person that understands what you want to do and realizes that you're a suffering designer yourself. You cannot design, in my case, I can't design anything, but I can explain what I want, and if my designer does exactly what I say, it's going to be terrible. But if my designer takes his or her flair and artistic genius and can sort of understand what I'm trying to get to, but not listen to me, I usually end up with a great result. Architects, on the other hand, usually there's a design architect and then there is more of your project architect. The project architects, you don't want them to infuse their genius into the project because there's not enough room for your interior designer genius, your design architect genius, and your own thought of your own self-genius. So you really want those people to be very rigid and to be great at what they do. And having all of those people work together in a very cohesive and unified way is what makes for a great project. So I think in my case, it's like working with the same people who I've worked with on many other projects just makes things so much easier on the one hand. On the other hand, you want to expand your horizons all the time. So it is a very personal process, but I think you easily can tell, does this work or does this not work within a few weeks of having them onboarded on a project.
How early do you bring in the sales folks?
Right in the beginning.
The beginning.
For us.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I mean, I think if we could do over our experience with the Mandarin, we would have put the sales team a bit earlier and have them there in a sort of development consultancy capacity that much earlier. But you live and learn, and they've been doing a great job. So we're using Fortune at the moment to do all the sales and marketing for the project, and it's been going very well so far.
Well, we're going to talk a lot about brands in the next few days, so I don't want to belabor it too much, but I would love to hear your thoughts on co-branding, the pros, the cons. Obviously, you've got the else, so can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, for us, we ran a process to select the brand, but because the Mandarin has been there for the last 24 years, right? We launched the current hotel in 2000. There's that continuity, there's that familiarity, and that partnership's gone very well. And actually, continuity over the long term is something that's important to both Swire and Mandarin. So they were the natural choice, and it's so hard to differentiate yourself in Mandarin. There are so many brands, branding businesses, But with the Mandarin, with their history and track record of legendary service around the world, and the fact that this is going to be the only Mandarin rental in Miami, that was quite important to us. But I think there's a danger of oversaturation. So of course you need to pay a pretty premium
Yes.
in licensing fees, but it's worth it. I mean, we're seeing the brand Mandarin is commanding a significant sales premium. We're very happy with that.
Plus 20%.
It's hard to know what it would have been if it was unbranded,
Right.
but if we compare, to other real estate on the island that we have developed on Brickell Key, which is unbranded, right?
Right.
It's less sophisticated. It was built more than 15, 20 years ago, but you can see a significant uplift. So we wanted that continuity, and then we feel that Mandarin share our obsession, our commitment to true service and true hospitality, which I think, as Dr. Daniel was saying, is part of the storytelling, part of the way that we offer something truly distinct, rather than just a brand name.
Is there a certain buyer that pursues the Mandarin that you're seeing?
What we've seen is we've been able to sort of tap into this segment of brand loyalists, so fans of the brand who are who either regular hotel guests and want to sort of level up to own a unit, or they just love that portfolio of 40 hotels globally and the ability to be part of the Mandarin Oriental family.
Jonathan, you're doing branding. You have great opinion.
Yeah, so I would say when we start a project, we don't think of a project as needing to be branded or as being branded in order to execute. So if the project only, for me, this is my personal opinion, if the project only worked as a branded product, to me it would be too risky. It would be too risky because you're not selling real estate, you're selling a brand. I'm not in that business. Okay. That being said, there is a huge appetite for branded product today. It's much easier to get investors in your project if it's branded. It is easier to lure foreign investors who are not as familiar with the product that you're actually selling, but they're investing for investment purposes. Having a tried and true known luxury brand is a stamp of endorsement, but there's no question that it has its benefits. I would say, interestingly enough, maybe the greatest benefit that a branded product has today is a void that if you're all service providers, this would be a great business undertaking for somebody that has the passion for excellence. In New York City, in Miami, and I'm sure in most other cities, there are not a lot of great choices for a building management, third-party building management company. If you had to say, who are the premier building management companies, I'm sure there's a few of them. We've used one that I thought was really good in sort of modeling our operations, but they don't have a huge depth of a portfolio to show what they've executed on. And there's a pure lack of great third-party property managers in every city that I've ever developed in. And having a brand, especially a hospitality brand that can perform the property management services and the hospitality services for you, fills a void and allows you to execute at a high level that is difficult to achieve with the existing third-party operators out there. So for me, that's probably one of the biggest benefits.
So, and you're on the rental side as well, and people have tried to make the branding residences work on the rental side, but because of the fees, it really is kind of a no-go.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, we just had this situation. We have a very large project that we're working on, high-rise, 47 stories in New York City, which has 46
I think we have a
very
picture
large.
of this.
Yes, this is the upper portion of this building. 46 units are either full floor or half floor, 3 to 6,000 square foot units, super high price point. Probably average price point $10 to $12 million per unit. For New York City, if every unit in your building is at that price point, especially this is in Brooklyn Heights, it's a game changer. And then we have 90 multifamily units on the bottom market rate. We had a very significant, well-known, probably top tier, top of the food chain hotel company that wanted to brand the residences here, but they wouldn't brand the condo units unless they also controlled the rental. And the rental units couldn't support being serviced by the hotel, brand. So it didn't work as a result of that. So the point is, it is difficult to make it work just simply because the costs are so sensitive in a multifamily project, and when you start layering in the extra premium you're paying for the brand, the project profitability suffers significantly. So I think there's this need again for
It is.
great third-party management where a brand can say, okay, we'll take your premium product, but let somebody else handle the rental
Yeah,
component.
the brand, in rental right now, Lifetime Living, which is Lifetime Fitness, he had Equinox up there. We are working with them, and they had a deal in Coral Gables, they sold it to Trammell Crow, but they have a project in Henderson, Nevada, that's just a podium deal, and they are getting substantially higher rents than what you would see.
I don't know how you get substantially higher rents than where people are projecting rents in Miami right now. And I
That's
think
true.
everybody will tell
Nevada,
you
it's
that it's
Nevada.
hard to achieve that
Oh,
just
yes.
based on what's happening in the marketplace. You have huge operating expenses on the insurance side. I don't know whether like a Lifetime increases that or not, or there's some kind of
Nevada
economies
probably
of
doesn't
scale.
have that, but yes. Yeah,
Hmm?
and Nevada probably doesn't have this.
Right, but the point is here, just achieving what's been projected, I think, is challenging enough to go and layer in a premium on that because you have, some kind of brand is probably not the kind of risk we would want to take.
Yeah, it's interesting. So I'm going to shift a little bit and talk about money, capital markets. Is there any kind of shift in the investor sentiment? Certainly, we talked about the election kind of behind us. Are you seeing anything there?
Yeah, I mean, it was remarkable anecdotally how in the days after the election result, how many of our buyers who were perhaps sitting on the fence or who were in reservation but hadn't yet converted suddenly were ready to commit. And maybe that's just coincidence. I think probably not. But the general feeling is that the election result is going to be good for business here in Florida, and what has always typically been a very business-friendly environment should sustain, which we're looking forward to. I mean, I think we're a little aware and cognizant that we need to monitor what happens to the cost side, so the labour side, if these deportations go ahead, what happens to the cost of materials with tariffs. So that's something that we're just a little bit nervous about, but certainly on the sales side it's been.
It's definitely going to be a contractor's pot bang. They're going to bang the pot on that, whether that's the reality or not,
Well,
because the costs are always going up.
That's happening. I got a phone call. We have a $38 million facade package that we're in the middle of awarding with a company that brings in windows and facades from China. Surprise! And they have great quality control down there. They have their own sort of factories that they run there. But at the end of the day, they called me up and said, if we don't sign something up before the end of the year, then we're worried about all these tariffs. And I said to them, well, just if you could stop for one moment. If we sign something up before the end of the year, I'm not taking delivery of the stuff. The building hasn't been built yet. How are you dealing with the tariffs?
Right.
Okay. And now the guy stopped for a second. He goes, well, we're trying to get as many sales, papered before the end of the year, and because we're concerned about tariffs. I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. You're just using this fear mongering to try and execute or ride the coattails of that. I think my personal opinion is very many people that I interact with were concerned with the current administration, and the biggest risk and the biggest concern that we see with investors is the uncertainty in the capital markets, and that is not just political, but in the current administration, it is political. And with Trump being, elected, there is a huge a sense of relief that you felt. It was not only did you hear it, but you felt it immediately. And I think that's going to make a big difference. Whether that'll have an impact on interest rates. Look, one of the biggest problems for us to raise equity, you got a lot of people out there that could put out debt at the same kinds of returns that we offered historically for equity,
Yes.
and that's a problem, right?
Yes.
So that's an issue. I'm not sure that we're going to see significantly lowered interest rates in the near term. But one thing I will say, and then I don't want to hog the mic here, but the the cost of interest today, the overall cost of interest today is made up of two components. I say this all the time. It's made up of your base interest rate, SOFR, whatever your base benchmark rate is, and then a spread. What is historically high today is not the interest rate. The T-bill isn't higher than it was when I started in real estate in 2005. It's about where it was. It's the spreads that are about 300 to 400 basis points higher than they have been historically. And those spreads are fed by fear. So to the extent that the investors have confidence, to the extent that lenders can feel more comfortable that they're not going to be shocked by some geopolitical condition in the next year or two, or that there isn't going to be some socialistic, communistic approach here in this country that makes inroads, you're going to see those spreads sort of, I think, shrink, and that'll help everybody in the real estate world.
That's, I hear that. So what are the return requirements right now for equity investors? In the multi side, they're looking for 6.5 return on costs, sometimes, which is impossible right now.
Yeah, I mean, I'm probably not the best person to ask because Swire typically self-funds projects, and we're a long-term, quite conservative company. We have 13% net gearing. I mean, we're a conglomerate listed in Hong Kong, so we're an airline, we own a shipping business, we do a lot of Coca-Cola's bottling and distribution, and we own real estate. So whatever debt the property company, the real estate company takes on, then rolls up to the net debt calculation of the parent company. So we tend to just rely on a line of credit from the parent company in Hong Kong. But we have had approaches from lenders and from institutional capital as well, looking to sort of be more of like a passive LP. And on the equity side, they're looking at 2x equity and 18 hours, but I'm sure
you're spot on. To post promote, so as a developer, you need to make money. You promote your LPs. At the end of the day, LPs are looking for a 2x profit return over a 3 to 4 year period of time on their equity, which is somewhere in the mid-20s IRR. And preferred equity investors are getting real aggressive today, where they're looking for a high teens kind of coupon with a kicker to get them to a 175 or a 2.0. So I would say that's where the equity markets are, and
So who's playing right now? Is it institutions back yet, or is it mostly private wealth?
You definitely have institutions that are playing. They're playing in a very select tier of elite projects. As Henry could tell you, there are not a lot of private companies that build high-rise. You have a great number or a larger number of institutional developers. Those institutional developers have been getting institutional dollars all along, right? They're getting either the parent companies have lines, or they have people that invest with them through their corporate relationships. The institutions that were investing in more of the, quasi-institutional developers, those fell by the wayside post-COVID, but they're coming back slowly, and I think you're seeing, it's just like when the debt markets recovered after the global recession. People stepped in gingerly, were willing to take on a little bit more risk, but they were selective in the projects that they were taking. And then once you had, half a dozen players in a new, call it, lending silo, all of a sudden everybody's jumping into it. So I think you'll see some of that now.
Yeah. Well, so we've got a few seconds left, so I want to quickly hear, where do you think we're headed in the luxury? We heard earlier there's a little bump in the road. What are you thinking in the luxury residential market today?
I think, from our perspective, we're really focused on winning and sort of sourcing our competitive advantage through really delivering on the service. So not just on the hardware, not just being a branded residence, but looking at every touch point the buyer or residents experience when they first arrived, their daily lives, and it's this concept that I try and instill in the team about we're trying to elevate these ordinary everyday transactions to really unforgettable experiences and really appeal to that human desire, that human sense of belonging, right, to be seen. And I think what we've created with the sales pavilion, which is what we're looking at here, down on the tip of Brickell Quay, and it gives a flavour, it gives a glimpse to what life at the residences will look like. So we're going to focus on service. I think there's a real danger of just relying too heavily on technology and over-providing for just technology's sake. And you know, of course, the apartments will be set up with all of the infrastructure needed for smart home technology and your EV chargers in the parking. But it's really service and then also sustainability, sustainable design. So we'll be enhancing the seawall around the island, the Brickell Quay, using nature-based solutions to be more environmentally friendly, and then also enhancing the Bay Walk, which is the linear park that surrounds the island. That is just frankly good for the soul. Right?
Sure.
It's just a key part of life on the island, and something that's very important to the community there.
Right, what are you seeing in
I think excellence in execution is the key in the future. You have so many projects that are luxury, but like if I talk to the stone suppliers, they're actually supplying porcelain to a lot of the luxury brands that are out there selling luxury condo. That's just a very superficial example, but the fact is, delivering something that is well designed, well executed, and differentiated, I think, is the key. And if you can do that well in a bite size or a larger size, it's much more difficult to do it in a larger size. And I think that's the luxury that people will be looking for in the next few years.
Thank you guys. Well, we're out of time. And so please join me in thanking my esteemed panelists for sharing their information. So we have a 30-minute networking break, but please network and come back because we're giving away an amazing award and a great conversation to the award winner that you don't want to miss. Thank you. Thank you so